Russian propaganda often highlights stories of volunteers from friendly or neutral African nations joining the army to fight in Ukraine, but many of these recruits did not volunteer at all. They were sent to the front lines through deceit and coercion. Since the start of 2024, a total of 3,344 foreign nationals who went to fight in Ukraine have received Russian citizenship, according to the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs. The Insider, independent media outlet, estimates that around 2,000 citizens from more than 50 countries have fought in the Donbas region, with 75% supporting Russia. Ukrainian POW camps have a few dozen foreign fighters. Recently, soldiers from Ukraine's 49th Separate Assault Battalion captured an African mercenary from Senegal who was fighting for Russia in the Toretsk direction. Battalion's press service reported the information. The captive said he had studied in Russia for 2 years. According to the Ukrainian military, he had planned to leave Russia for Germany but was forced to go to the front to earn money before he could leave. The Senegalese mercenary admitted that before his capture, he feared the Ukrainian soldiers would shoot him. However, they simply ordered him to follow them. The Ukrainian military reported that during his surrender, the Senegalese cried and said he no longer wanted to go to Europe, but just wanted to return home. He also described Russia as bad, very bad. During the examination, the mercenary was found to have minor injuries and was provided with all the necessary assistance. While losing hundreds and sometimes as many as 1,000 troops a day in its invasion of Ukraine, Russia has resorted to desperation in its attempts to reinforce its fallen troops. They have used foreign fighters in human wave attacks, recklessly treating men as cannon fodder. According to European officials and members of the international intelligence community, some Africans in Russia on work visas have been detained and forced to choose between deportation or fighting. The Kremlin has also increasingly looked to its prison population for recruiting. Some Africans were able to bribe officials to avoid military service and stay in the country.
Вот еще раз рассказывай, откуда пришел?
Senegal.
Сенегал?
Плачет, сидит на сходах, плачет. Россия 2 года учит, потом я найти один человек Россия. Понимаю, Россия вас убиваю. Сейчас я хочу только, не хочу Европа, я хочу только...
Ukraine is ready for negotiations to end the war started by Russia, but not for surrender. This was stated by the Minister of Economy of Ukraine Yulia Svyridenko. There should be no agreement that would give Russia a stronger foundation to regroup and return with greater ruthlessness. A complete ceasefire on land, in the air and at sea is the first necessary step. If Russia prefers a temporary pause, Ukraine will respond in kind, the minister said. According to Svyridenko, Ukraine will not be able to accept a frozen conflict under the guise of peace, as well as recognize the occupation of Crimea. Recall that earlier it was reported that U.S. President Donald Trump presented the parties with a peace plan that includes territorial concessions to Russia. The proposal includes the recognition of Crimea as Russian territory. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated that they would not accept it. The Trump administration's final proposal for ending the Russia-Ukraine war included U.S. de jure recognition of Russia's control over Crimea, along with de facto recognition of its occupation of other Ukrainian territories, Axios reported. According to U.S. President Donald Trump's final peace proposal, Washington would de jure recognize the Russian control over Crimea and de facto recognize the occupation of Ukrainian territories in Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia oblasts. The deal would also prevent Ukraine from joining NATO but allow EU membership, lift sanctions imposed on Russia since 2014, and include deeper energy and economic cooperation between the US and Russia. In return, the US promises Ukraine a robust security guarantee backed by European countries and possibly non-European like-minded countries. US President Donald Trump has accused Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky of undermining peace negotiations with Russia after he said Kiev would not recognize Moscow's control of Crimea Peninsula. In a post on the Truth Social platform on Wednesday, Trump slammed Zelensky for boasting that Ukraine would not legally recognize ceding Crimea to Russia. This statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia, Trump said. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that makes it so difficult to settle this war, Trump stressed, adding that the Ukrainian leader can have peace or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. Furthermore, Trump reminded that Russia invaded Crimea and annexed the peninsula in 2014 without a shot being fired, and that Crimea is not even a point of discussion. Trump's remarks follow Zelensky's comments on Tuesday that Kyiv would not agree to ceding territory to Russia in any deal. There is nothing to talk about, it is our land, the land of the Ukrainian people, Zelensky said. Zelensky's statements came ahead of talks on Wednesday in London among US, European and Ukrainian officials. Earlier, on Wednesday, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said that the U.S. would walk away from its deal-making role if Russia and Ukraine do not come to an agreement.
During the Sultan of Oman's recent visit to Moscow, Putin's security detail considered a diplomatic gift of a ritual dagger a potential threat and did not allow the delegation to bring it into the building. As Kommersant journalist Andrei Kolesnikov reported during the visit of the Sultan of Oman, Haitham bin Tariq Al Said, to the Russian Federation, the delegation attempted to present Putin with a national gift, a large ritual dagger. But the Federal Protective Service FSO officers took the situation literally and did not allow the guests with the item into the Kremlin. The diplomats tried to explain that the item was a gift, a present for the Russian president, but the guards showed unwavering principledness. That's how it's done. The FSO representatives responded and suggested finding a safer form of delivery. As a result, the Omani delegation, headed by Ambassador Hamoud bin Salem Al Taik, was forced to go to the meeting without a gift. The dagger, according to the journalist, remained outside the Kremlin, and the meeting itself took place in a formal setting. Commenting on the situation, Kolesnikov noted with irony that the guests passed unarmed, which obviously in the logic of the FSO is the optimal scenario for any international visit. This case, although it looks funny, clearly demonstrates the level of secrecy and paranoia into which the security system of the first person is gradually sliding. Even representatives of friendly states are no exception to the regulations. The Kremlin seems to believe that gifts in the form of daggers are too sharp, not only literally, but also politically. In Arab diplomatic culture, gifts, especially ornate weapons, symbolize respect, trust, and alliance. In Russia's political reality, however, even such a gesture can be met with suspicion, if not alarm, by the security detail of the 73-year-old dictator.